Okay, let's talk about caffeine. It's literally the most popular psychoactive substance on the planet. But do we really understand what that morning coffee is doing to our brains? Let's dive into it. You know the feeling. We've all been there, right? You're just dragging, staring down a deadline, and you reach for that coffee, hoping for that little jolt, that flash of brilliance that's going to get you across the finish line.
But then there are those other times. The times when that exact same cup of coffee, instead of giving you focus, just gives you the jitters, a racing heart, and bam, a total creative block. It's a really frustrating paradox.
To understand this contradiction, we've got to look at what caffeine is chemically built to do inside our brains. And trust me, it's doing a lot more than just waking you up.
So here's the deal. All day long, this chemical called adenosine builds up in your brain. You can kind of think of it as sleep pressure. Well, caffeine's superpower is that it swoops in and blocks the receptors for adenosine, basically tricking your brain into thinking it isn't tired. But just blocking the sleepy feeling, that's only half the story. Caffeine also cranks up the volume on some other key brain chemicals. It boosts dopamine, that's the feel-good molecule that helps with focus, and norepinephrine, which kicks your alertness into high gear. The end result is a brain that isn't just awake, it's like primed for performance. But how well does this chemical boost really work when you're running on empty?
Well, scientists wanted to know that exact same thing. So they decided to put caffeine to the test under the exact conditions most of us use it, when we're completely exhausted. And they did a massive scientific review to find out.
Researchers over at Griffith University ran a huge meta-analysis, which means they basically combined all the data from 45 separate studies. Their goal was to get a final, definitive answer. Is caffeine actually an effective way to counter the problems caused by sleep loss? And their main finding was totally unambiguous. The conclusion was a huge, clear yes. When you're tired, the science is rock solid. Caffeine works.
And what's really interesting here is just how big the effects were. The study found large, measurable improvements in critical things like driving control and reaction time, plus a really strong boost in attention. These are all tasks that really rely on you being vigilant.
So the takeaway here is crystal clear. For straightforward, focused performance, like executing a task, staying alert on the road, reacting quickly, the evidence is just overwhelming. Caffeine helps you power through. But if it's so great at boosting performance, why does it sometimes feel like it completely murders our creativity and just floods us with anxiety? Well, the answer lies in how our brains actually generate ideas in the first place. Okay, so our brains tend to operate in two main modes. You have convergent thinking, which is like a laser beam. It's focused, logical, and it helps you find that one single correct answer to a problem. And then you have divergent thinking, which is more like a floodlight. It's broad, free-flowing, and lets you explore tons of different possibilities without judgment. All that focus and alertness we just talked about, that makes caffeine an absolute superstar for convergent laser beam thinking. It's perfect for when you need to edit a report, solve a math problem, or just execute a plan you've already made. And right here, this is the heart of the issue. That intense focus can actually shut down the relaxed, wandering, daydreamy state that our brains need for divergent thinking. For brainstorming and making those weird, unexpected connections. And that is where the anxiety and creative block can come from. Which brings us to the most personal part of this whole equation, your own biology. Why can one person have a coffee and feel creative, while another just feels panicked? The answer, for the most part, is written in your DNA. It turns out there's a single gene called CYP1A2, and it controls the production of an enzyme that metabolizes almost all of the caffeine you drink. And the efficiency of this gene varies a ton from person to person. And fun fact, this is actually the same enzyme that processes a lot of medications, which is why your doctor might ask about your coffee habits. So this one genetic difference splits people into two main groups. For fast metabolizers, caffeine's half-life might just be a couple of hours. They get the energy without a lot of the jitters. But for slow metabolizers, it can last for 8 hours or even more. That means their morning coffee is still having an effect well into the evening, making them way more likely to feel anxious and overwhelmed. And it's not just about that one gene. Your regular caffeine tolerance, your natural anxiety levels, your personality, even the time of day, all of that contributes to how you're going to react to that cup. So, How can you actually make caffeine work for you, not against you? How do you get that amazing focus without sacrificing your creativity? It all comes down to being mindful and a little bit strategic.
Okay, so let's put this all together into a simple strategy. First up, timing. Do your creative brainstorming before you have any caffeine, when your mind is free to wander. Then, when it's time to focus and get it done, bring in the caffeine. Second, know your dose. You gotta experiment to find your sweet spot. More is not always better. Third, mind the clock. Try to avoid caffeine after 2 p.m. This protects your sleep, which is absolutely essential for creativity. And finally, create a ritual. The simple act of making coffee can be a powerful cue to your brain that it's time to get into a focused mindset.
And hey, remember, if coffee just isn't your friend, that is perfectly okay. Alternatives like green tea have something called L-theanine, which is an amino acid that promotes a kind of calm focus. The goal is to find your ideal creative state, not just to feel energized.
So what's the bottom line here? The science is solid that caffeine works, but its effect is deeply personal. By understanding the difference between focused execution and creative brainstorming, and by really listening to your own biology, you can turn your daily cup from a source of anxiety into a powerful and reliable creative tool.